There's no doubt that trucking has been kind of tough in the States for the last year and a half or so. The fuel prices are way up, the freight's hard to find, so I thought I'd make my American friends feel a little better by saying, yes, it has been tough in the States, but it just friggin' downright sucks compared to trucking in Canada right now. Let's start with fuel prices. Last week, the average diesel fuel price in the States was $3.86 a gallon. Last week in Canada, the average fuel price, when you worked it out from liters, was $7.49 a gallon. We've seen fuel as high last week up here as $10.85 a gallon. So to fill up my truck with 300-gallon tanks, it would cost me $3,255 for one fill-up. Now, doesn't that just stop your heart? And that's no free coffee or even a free shower with that. Now, bear in mind that a lot of the fueling we do up in Canada is done at card locks because we have very few real truck stops. So a card lock is basically a pump out in the middle of nowhere with no human attendant, sits out in all kinds of weather. You just swipe your fuel card and hope it works. And if it doesn't, you're just beat. Now, we do have a few card locks that are attended, but generally those attendants are there from 9 to 5. And if your fuel card doesn't work, they just say, oh, sorry about your luck, we can't help, call your company. That's their standard line. Now, these manned card locks do have a couple of driver showers, and generally they try to clean them once a day. That's once a day, not once after every driver, to the point that they're downright disgusting. And they're BYOT. Bring your own towel. Those showers are worse than the worst Flying J that you've ever been in. Let's talk about driver pay. In the US, it's entirely possible for a company driver with a good fleet like Walmart to make over $100,000 a year. In Canada, there is nobody paying any of their drivers anywhere close to that. Yeah, we've got Walmarts here in Canada, but all their trucking is done out subsidized to a different fleet. Nobody in Canada is making that kind of money. Hours of service. To add insult to injury, not only do Canadian truck drivers make less, they work longer to get it. The hours of service up here in Canada demand 13 and a half hours of driving compared to 10 and a half in the States. And when I say demand, those carriers up here in Canada expect it. They don't want any excuses. They want a full 13 and a half hours every day, or you better have a good reason why. They don't respect their drivers up here, not the way they do in the States. Truck driver training. Here in Ontario, it's mandatory for a new driver, before he gets his CDL, he must go to a provincially registered driving school. He can't obtain his license any other way, and those schools range between $10,000 and $15,000 per student. After you graduate from one of these schools, there really aren't very many jobs available, and what there is available is pretty much minimal pay, $35,000, $40,000 a year for a $15,000 investment. I think there's a freight shortage in the US? Well, there is, but there's nothing like that compared to Canada. In Canada, we move 80% of all our freight on government subsidized railroads. The freight pickings up here are virtually slim to none. The freight is so cheap, in fact, that one grocery chain that runs the prairies is allowed to run 3 trailers, one behind the other. Basically, a road train, like you'd see in Australia. Only in Australia, the roads are dry most of the time. Up here, we're running these road trains on icy roads and crosswinds in winter in Canada. Truck breakdowns in Canada happen a lot more often than in the States because of our weather, for the most part. DEF fluid can literally freeze while you're driving the truck and shuts the truck down. And those are just some of the biggest problems. There's a whole list more I could mention. So take heart, my American friends. While trucking is tough right now, it's hell in Canada. Just be glad you are where you are. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, keep south of the Canadian border if you possibly can, and I'll see you on the backhaul.